They needed water, food. He had a bare half dozen ration tablets, but the coyotes could locate water. "Come." Travis beckoned to Kaydessa, motioning her to climb ahead of him so that he could watch for any indication of her succumbing once again to the influence of the enemy. But his burdened early morning flight had told on Travis more than he thought, and he discovered he could not spur himself on to a pace better than a walk. Now and again, one of the coyotes, usually Nalikiadoyu, would come into view, express impatience in both stance and mental signal, and then be gone again. The Apache was increasingly aware that the animals were disturbed, yet to his tentative gropings at contact they did not reply. Since they gave no warning of hostile animal or man, he could only be on constant guard, watching the countryside about him. They had been following a ledge for several minutes before Travis was aware of some strange features of that path. Perhaps he had actually noted them with a trained eye before his archaeological studies of the recent past gave him a reason for the faint marks. This crack in the mountain skin might have begun as a natural fault, but afterward it had been worked with tools, smooth, widened to serve the purpose of some form of intelligence. Travis caught at Kaydessa's shoulder to slow her pace. He could not have told why he did not want to speak aloud here, but he felt the need for silence. She glanced around, perplexed, more so when he went down on his knees and ran his fingers along one of those ancient tool marks. He was certain it was very old. Inside of him anticipation bubbled. A road made with such labor could only lead to something of importance. He was going to make the discovery, the dream which had first drawn him into these mountains. "What is it?" Kaydessa knelt beside him, frowning at the ledge. "This was cut by someone a long time ago," Travis half whispered, and then wondered why. There was no reason to believe the road makers could hear him when perhaps 1,000 years or more lay between the chipping of that stone and this day. The Tatar girl looked over her shoulder. Perhaps she too was troubled by the sense that here time was suddenly telescoped, that past and present might be meeting. Or was that feeling with them both because of their enforced conditioning? "Who?" Now her voice sank in turn. "Listen." He regarded her intently. "Did your people or the Reds ever find any traces of the old civilization here? Ruins?" "No." She leaned forward, tracing with her own finger the same almost obliterated marks which had intrigued Travis. "But I think they have looked. Before they discovered that we could be free, they sent out parties to hunt, they said. But afterward they always asked many questions about the country. Only they never asked about ruins. Is that what they wished us to find? But why? Of what value are old stones piled on one another?" "In themselves, little, save for the knowledge they may give us of the people who piled them. But for what the stones might contain, much value." "And how do you know what they might contain, Fox?" "Because I have seen such treasure houses of the Star Men," he returned absently. To him the marks on the ledge were a pledge of greater discoveries to come. He must find where that carefully constructed road ran, to what it led. "Let us see where this will take us." But first he gave the chittering signal in 4 sharp bursts, and the tawny gray bodies came out of the tangled brush, bounding up to the ledge. Together the coyotes faced him, their attention all for his halting communication. Ruins might lie ahead. He hoped that they did. But on another planet such ruins had twice proved to be deadly traps, and only good fortune had prevented their closing on Terran explorers. If the ape things or any other dangerous form of life had taken up residence before them, he wanted good warning. Together the coyotes turned and loped along the now level way of the ledge, disappearing around a curve fitted to the mountain side while Travis and Kaydessa followed. They heard it before they saw its source, a waterfall. probably not a large one, but high. Rounding the curve, they came into a fine mist of spray where sunlight made rainbows of color across a filmy veil of water. For a long moment they stood entranced. Kaydessa then gave a little cry, held out her hands to the purling mist, and brought them to her lips again to suck the gathering moisture. Water slicked the surface of the ledge, and Travis pushed her back against the wall of the cliff. As far as he could discern, their road continued behind the outflung curtain of water, and footing on the wet stone was treacherous. With their backs to the solid security of the wall, facing outward into the solid drape of water, they edged behind it and came out into rainbowed sunlight again. Here either provident nature or ancient art had hollowed a pocket in the stone which was filled with water. They drank. Then Travis filled his canteen while Kaydessa washed her face, holding the cold freshness of the moisture to her cheeks with both palms. She spoke, but he could not hear her through the roar. She leaned closer and raised her voice to a half shout. "This is a place of spirits. Do you not also feel their power, Fox?" Perhaps for a space at a time he did feel something. This was a watering place, perhaps a never-ceasing watering place. And to his desert-born and bred race all water was a spirit gift never to be taken for granted. The rainbow, the spirit people's sacred sign, old belief stirred in Travis, moving him. "I feel," he said, nodding in emphasis to his agreement. They followed the ledge road to a section where a landslide of an earlier season had choked it. Travis worked a careful way across the debris, Kaydessa obeying his guidance in turn. Then they were on a sloping downward way which led to a staircase, the threads weather-worn and crumbling. The angle so steep Travis wondered if it had ever been intended for beings with a physique approximating the Terran's. They came to a cleft where an arch of stone was chiseled out as a roofing. Travis thought he could make out a trace of carving on the capstone, so worn by years and weather that it was now only a faint shadow of design. The cleft was a door into another valley. Here, too, golden mist swirled in tendrils to disguise and cloak what stood there. Travis had found his ruins. Only the structures were intact, not breached by time. Mist flowed in lapping tongues back and forth, confusing outlines, now shuttering, now barring oval windows, which were spaced in diamonds of 4 on round tower surfaces. There were no visible cracks, no cloaking of climbing vegetation, nothing to suggest age and long roots in the valley. Nor did the architecture he could view match any he had seen on those other worlds. Travis strode away from the cleft doorway. Under his moccasins was a block pavement, yellow and green stone set in a simple pattern of checks. This too was level, unchipped and undisturbed, save for a drift or two of soil driven in by the wind, and nowhere could he see any vegetation. The towers were of the same green stone as half the pavement blocks, a glassy green which made him think of jade, if jade could be mined in such quantities as these 5-story towers demanded. Nalik'ideyu padded to him, and he could hear the faint click of her claws on the pavement. There was a deep silence in this place, as if the air itself swallowed and digested all sound. The wind which had been with them all the day of their journeying was left beyond the cleft. Yet there was life here. The coyote told him that in her own way. She had not made up her mind concerning that life. Weariness and curiosity warred in her now as her pointed muzzle lifted towards the windows overhead. The windows were all well above ground level, but there was no opening in the first stories as far as Travis could see. He debated moving into the range of those windows to investigate the far side of the towers for doorways. The mist and the message from Nalik'ideyu nourished his suspicions. Out in the open he would be too good a target for whatever or whoever might be standing within the deep walled frames. the